Hey, I'm back. So welcome to part 2 of a walk-home review from the doubleheader my folks and I did today. And our second film is X-Men Apocalypse. I'm not quite sure how to get into this one. Because in thinking about this movie, all I can think about is kind of the sins of the X-Men franchise as it is and as it stands right now. And you should try to judge a film on its own merit. But when it's part of a franchise that's been going on for this long and this many films, it's impossible to kind of divorce yourself, at least for me sometimes, to divorce myself from all that other stuff and concentrate on this one film. I guess I'll lead by saying it wasn't bad. There's nothing horribly offensive in it. It's not, it's no Batman versus Superman. That being said, it's an X-Men movie, guys. I don't know what else to say about an X-Men movie at this point. The X-Men movies, I'm going to get off on a rant here, so you're all just going to have to live with it. The X-Men movies are tired. They're done. I want them to stop. And I don't want them to stop because I'm angry at this. I don't want them to stop because they're terrible. They're just so tired. And what I mean by that is, with this film, X-Men Apocalypse, all the stuff that is good about an X-Men movie is still good. And all the stuff that's bad or blah or whatever is still bad or blah or whatever. These movies, funny that a series about evolution and about mutants being the next stage of human evolution has not evolved in the past 10 years plus. They're still chomping at the bit. You've got the same director doing the same visuals, and which looked good in their time, but when compared to what we have now, they don't stack up. It looks like you're showing, a movie you made when you were 3 years old, compared to a movie you make when you're now a multi-million-dollar film director. It looks the same. And it's so tired. Honest to God, when was the last time anybody was excited about an X-Men trailer? Anybody? Anybody really going, yay, another X-Men movie? It's been a while, hasn't it? And I'm saying this coming from a place of not hatred, because I know some of these movies elicit a lot of hatred. And I've said this before, I'm going on record, and this may make me lose a lot of credibility. I did not hate X-Men 3. And I certainly did not hate X-Men Origins Wolverine. I'll be honest with you, of all the X-Men films, the X-Men Origins Wolverine is the one I watch the most because it's the most fun. Is it perfect? Hell no. But does it deserve this kind of, this pure, unadulterated hatred? I don't think so. I don't think that X3 or X-Men Origins Wolverine are any better or any worse than any other X-Men movies. They're all kind of the same. And that's the problem with this one as I try to review Apocalypse, is that, did you see X-Men Days of Future Past? Well, you've pretty much seen this one. Everything's, the conflicts are the same, characters are the same. There's just not a lot to say about it. A couple things I will say. I'll talk about something I really liked and something I really didn't. I really liked Sophie Turner, or Sansa Stark. It's a kind of a Game of Thrones theme today as I went to the movies. I really liked her as Jean Grey. I felt she did more with the character of Jean Grey in the 2.5 hours of this movie than they did with the character of Jean Grey in the original 3 films put together. So I really liked her as Jean. Conversely, and this is where I'm going to get really comic book nerdy on you, because I don't do that. I usually try, when I see one of these movies, I try my best to divorce myself from well, they didn't do that in the comics as much as possible, with the understanding that it's a new medium, things are going to change from translation to translation. You know, like I say, most of the things most people bitch about in all the other X-Men movies, I'm just like, okay, whatever, don't care. But here's one. I did not like Oscar Isaacs as Apocalypse. I didn't like Apocalypse in X-Men Apocalypse. Partly, one, again, I didn't like the actor. Nothing against Oscar Isaacs. But he's so bloody short. And his voice is not... There's a line in one of the X-Men comics from the X-Men Age of Apocalypse series when it describes Apocalypse, and it says he has a voice that thunder would be envious of. This guy did not have it. Apocalypse needs to be tall, imposing, powerful. This guy was not. I will go on record and saying, even from the casting of the actor to the portrayal of Apocalypse, this is the worst X-Men villain we've seen in all 8+ of these movies. The worst. He's not intimidating. He's not exciting. They try to sell you that he's this huge threat, which Apocalypse should be. He never comes off that way. Never once. He's overpowered, and he's got a lot of powers. But as a character, no. And again, all the same problems of the X-Men films are all there. Some characters get a lot of screen time and a lot of development. Others are just kind of there. And they want us to care about all these. You know? Well, like for instance, anybody who knows the lore of Apocalypse in the comics is that he gets together his 4 horsemen. You know, other mutants that he changes or creates. And they make it Magneto, a new Storm, a new Angel, and Psylocke. Magneto being the only one of these characters we've seen in a previous film. We've seen Angel in X3, but it's supposed to be a new guy. So, and we've seen Storm in the other ones, but we don't know this Storm. So we have no emotional connection to Storm or Angel or Psylocke becoming the 4 horsemen. Why not take one of the characters we've met, like Havoc, and make him one of the horsemen? We've met him in these new X-Men films. Why not make him one of the horsemen? Someone we care about, someone we know. And that's the problem with these X-Men movies. They try to cram so many characters in so that the fans can go, ooh, look, ooh, look, ooh, look. And because of that, half of them don't get any play. Half of them don't get much to do. And the whole thing just comes out very boring. You know? So, I'm also going to say Bryan Singer. Bryan Singer is becoming the Vince McMahon of comic book movies. And what I mean by that, for anybody who is a wrestling fan like I am, you know, Vince McMahon created the World Wrestling Federation, World Wrestling Entertainment. And that is a huge deal. You know, it's the leader in pro wrestling. And he has spent the past however many years patting himself on the back for that instead of evolving in any way, shape, or form. And that's what Bryan Singer has done. I'm gonna say this, and I'm probably gonna repeat myself when I kind of wrap this up. The X-Men movies, the original X-Men movies, 1 and 2, and I'll even say 3 a bit, were vital, important movies in the evolution of the comic book film genre. What they did and the things that they started have been now perfected, but it wouldn't have happened had the X-Men films not happened. You know, for example, the casting of notable, respected actors in comic book films. Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen. If they hadn't done that, you wouldn't see all of these actors now lining up to be in comic book movies. They made it cool and made it work. The casting of unknowns with potential in key roles. Hugh Jackman as Wolverine is a revelation. I'm stealing that line from somebody, but it's true. You know, they introduced us to Hugh Jackman, And he introduced us to his Wolverine, and he is now going to be, forever and always, the one, he's going to be the Christopher Reeves, the Tobey Maguire of the X-Men movies. He's the one that no matter who they cast to play Wolverine, now or in the future, he's the one we're going to compare it to. He made that role. So that was important. If it wasn't for guys like him, you know, who knows if we would have seen like Christopher Evans or Chris Hemsworth or Chris Pratt, a lot of Chris's, in these major roles in some of these films. You know? So that's important. Also important, and much to Bryan Singer's credit, one of the things the first two X-Men did, and I think the third one tried but didn't quite get there, taking these comic book stories and showing kind of the world at large, hey, these stories are about more than just guys with stupid names punching other guys with stupid names. These were films, especially the first two, that had a real powerful subtext of, you know, it had I don't know quite how to put it. I'm trying to think of the right phrasing. You know, the mutants became a metaphor for homosexuality. Let's be honest. And the way they're treated, the way they're talked to, that scene with in X-Men 2 with Bobby Drake and his family, where his mom says, "Have you tried not being a mutant?" I mean, come on. And it started this whole thing. I think if you hadn't had that, though, that someone saying these films can be about more than just guys punching each other, I don't think we'd have something like The Dark Knight, which people praise and praise and praise as being so psychological. I gotta turn around here. So psychological and so deep and so powerful and this and that and the other thing. We wouldn't have had that if they didn't show us with the X-Men movies that that was possible. So I'm trying to say this, that those first couple X-Men movies really did something important. And they are important films, if not great films. They're not good films, and they don't hold up that well. But they're important for their point in history. But here's the problem. They have not evolved. None of them. They are the same movie. And anytime a new director or a new voice comes in, the first thing all the fans do is, the only one that changed it, that started to make me feel like this is going to work again, was Matthew Vaughn with X-Men First Class. Brought in a fresh new cast, a new aesthetic, got them out of those god-awful black outfits and into like the actual yellow and gold, you know, flight suits. And I'm thinking, great, we're finally moving forward a little bit. And then Bryan Singer had to take it over with Days of Future Past and killed off almost all of the new and interesting characters that Matthew Vaughn had brought in. Had to do it so that it glued it all to his series of X-Men films. And in this one, he is constantly patting himself on the back. There's a scene, and this was a groaner for me. It takes place in the 80s. There's a scene where Cyclops, Jean Grey, Nightcrawler, and Jubilee go to the movies and they see Return of the Jedi. They come out, and they're arguing about it. And they're saying, Jubilee is saying, well, the second one, they didn't say the name, the second one was better. It was darker, and it was brave enough not to have a happy ending. And Scott Summers says, yeah, but if it wasn't for the first one, none of those other ones would have existed. And then Jean Grey says, well, we can all agree the third one was the worst. Ha, ha, ha. You know, Bryan Singer is constantly patting himself on the back for this, and he hasn't done anything with these movies. The fight scene at the end of this film, when you compare this to what we do that, I'm trying not to swear here. When you compare that to that absolutely stunning and revolutionary battle scene in Captain America Civil War, to this thing that still looks like it was shot in the early 2000s with crappy wire work, CGI that looks like it's from 2000, it doesn't work. It looks so amateurish. But Bryan Singer refuses to evolve. And that kind of gets to the crux of the matter, guys. Again, these X-Men films did a lot. They're important. And this one is not terrible. My parents went with me. My parents are not comic book fans. They hate these movies. But they've always gone with me to see these when they're out in the summer. And my parents enjoyed it. They said it was fun. It was an entertaining film. You know, they could follow it. They didn't need, you know, like a flow chart to say who was who. You know, and of course my mom loves Hugh Jackman, so that's a thing. So, you got to take that into account. Look at this. This is not a bad movie. Again, it's no Batman versus Superman. But it's tired. It's the same stuff. Everything that is good about the X-Men movies is still good. Everything that's bad is still bad. There's no changing. And they really need... I know they can't do this, because I know if they stop making X-Men movies, then the license goes up and Marvel Studios gets their toys back, as Movie Bob would say. So I know they're not going to stop. And the X-Men films are still fairly profitable. But what I would really love to see is them to just stop. Stop making these. Give it 5, maybe 10 years. You know? And then come back after the Marvel films have kind of run their course a little bit. Whatever debacle the DC universe is going through can kind of get over itself. Come back and start fresh with new directors. Get some other new up-and-coming director. Somebody who has an actual love of the material or has something to say with it. And again, I think that's the thing that's been causing all this stagnation. The first two, as we talked about, with the very heavy, you know, political undertones, Bryan Singer had something to say with it. And he hasn't had anything to say in 5-10 years. And neither have any of the other X-Men films. So it's time to stop. Because I'm not excited about these anymore. I went and saw this one out of obligation. Really. I feel like I went and saw it because I saw all the others, and damn it, I'm going to see this one. And it'll probably end up on my DVD shelf. You know, that ever question of, would I buy this on DVD? Yeah, I probably will, but I can tell you this, I'm not going to pay full price for it. I'll wait a year or two, like I did with all the other, with the Wolverine and Days of Future Past. I'll wait a year or two. I'm not paying full price for it. And it goes on the shelf kind of because, you know, again, obligation. So, I don't know what else to say about this, because I feel like I'm beating it just kind of like they are. So, you're looking for just a movie to kind of go to and have a good time with, and just, you know, you don't want anything that's, you know, really big like Captain America, or you don't want something that's totally terrible like Batman v Superman. This is kind of that middle ground. It's leaning a little bit more towards Batman v Superman than it is Captain America, but it's not terrible. You can have some popcorn, you can have a few laughs, but, you know, you're not getting anything out of it you didn't get out of all the other X-Men movies. So I'm sorry to say that. They're already planning another one, so we're going to see more. So that's all for me. Hopefully I'll get these posted before I head back. So if I don't, walk safe. See you at the movies.